Hello everybody and welcome to this very special end of year top 10 countdown. This is my list of my top 10 light novels of 2017. Now this year I read and reviewed 83 light novels from 48 different series, so there was quite a variety of things to pick from. Ultimately what I kind of settled on was going with those light novels that surprised me, that delivered something more than what I expected. For a brand new series, well, it's pretty obvious how it could surprise me. But for the series that are ongoing, I picked the ones that I felt had either presented such outstanding ongoing quality that I could not include them on the list, but also ones that had volumes that really just seemed to take the series to a totally different place or just surprise me in just how incredibly deep and different they were from some of the series volumes before. There's a lot of really amazing light novel series that I greatly enjoy that aren't on this list. And it's not because I think that they aren't great series, it's just that this year the volumes that I read from that series pretty much gave me exactly what I expected. And it may sound kind of crummy to say it that a series like, say, The Devil is a Part-Time or Excel World, or even probably the most controversial that's not on this list, Konosuba, is a consistent deliverer. Being consistent is a great thing in the light novel game, but because of how I decided to do this list, unfortunately, consistency, even if it's great consistency, didn't always take it to the next level for me. So this is my top 10 just for 2017. This isn't like an of all time list because honestly, I add new favorites into the mix all the time. So let's get to the list. At number 10 by Doji Maru, it is a series that's brought out by J Novel Club, and that is How a Realist Hero Rebuilt the Kingdom. I read volumes 1 and 2 of this series. J Novel currently has 4 volumes out. This series kind of surprised me because in the deluge of isekai titles, this one came out and I knew very, very little about it. And it impressed me with the fact that its focus was not on a hero who was saving the day because of some incredible power or because he was so immensely OP, but rather because of his intelligence, because of his willingness to sacrifice himself and to accept the hate and scorn that is required to turn a kingdom around. His superpowers are knowledge of civil engineering, history, philosophy, and just his willingness to get down and dirty and do the work. So in a lot of ways, this is a isekai, but it's a kingdom building isekai. The other thing that kind of impressed me about this series was it is a harem, and I mean, we see harems all the time, particularly in isekais, and I often kind of just are like, yep, okay, it's a harem. They don't often do anything that's really especially different. But what I liked about this harem was that it was filled with relatively intelligent girls who all had very specific skill sets. And unlike many other harems where the girls fight with each other and compete with each other and everything else to be, best girl and all the rest of that, instead we had a group of women that acknowledged that the work that's being done by this hero to save the kingdom is far more important than any one of them. And so instead we have a harem that's actually trying to find a place for each individual so that they can use their strengths and abilities in order to best serve the hero and to serve the kingdom. This kind of selflessness you don't often see in harem characters, so it kind of really impressed me, and having this story go everywhere from building roads right up to civil unrest and full-on revolt, it was just very, very different, and I really just had to recognize the fact that it was very well done and that it really engaged me and read like no other isekai novel that I read this year. At number 9 by Kanata Yanagino, it is The Far Away Paladin, and this one is also published by J Novel Club. I read volumes 1 and 2. Currently, J-Novel has 4 volumes out. It's a little tricky though. Volume number 3 is actually 2 parts, so that's how you get 4 volumes. I believe the 4th volume is actually just going to be coming out in Japan in February. I think I just saw tweeted out by the author. In this one, we have a reincarnation isekai, and this was actually one of my first experiences with a full-on reincarnation. Like, the character actually starts as an infant in the new world. And this story was so intimate in its first volume in particular. There were only 4 really main characters and very, very few ancillary characters on top of that. The relationships between these 3 individuals who had chosen to adopt this young child and raise him and teach him and the ways of the world and the ways of the gods and the ways of magic. It was so heartfelt, and because there weren't tons of characters, because the world building was being shown just through the eyes of a select few characters, it was incredibly well done and just brought me in and made me really engaged with the characters. This is also a series that I always say to people is one of my favorite magic systems of any of these isekai type novels. It's simple, but its simplicity sort of masks a very dangerous aspect of the magic, and how in a lot of ways, even though it seems simple, it can very easily go wrong. It just was one of those magic systems that tied into everything about the world, the way that even the mythology of how the world was created, the gods, everything, it just fit perfectly. And like I said, it was simple and yet complex, easy and yet very easy to become dangerous. So the Far Away Paladin was a very, very different read, even in the book 2, where the main character sort of goes out into the wider world and starts meeting more characters. It still felt like there was just this small band of characters that were forming around the main character. There were no harem elements. It really felt like a very, very strong origin story for an individual who was going to truly change the world, even if it wasn't something as cliche or obvious as there's already a demon king that I'm going to defeat. It's more, I mean, there is a demon king, like there is, but it's much more about sort of like the salvation of the world, not just about let's kill the demon king. So it was a really different book for me. Particularly the first volume I absolutely loved, and so that is how it has earned its place on my top 10 for this year. At number 8, from Yu Kamiya, No Game, No Life. This one being published by Yen On. There are 6 volumes currently available. This year I read volumes 5 and 6, and it's really because of volume 6 that this one has made the list this year. Volume 6 of No Game, No Life is a novel that is truly a No Game, No Life book, and yet it is like none of the other books that have come before. As much as I enjoy No Game, No Life, and as much as it is a pretty dependable series in terms of what you are going to get each volume, the truth is that as much as it can be very clever, sometimes the characters aren't exactly likable. Sometimes the whole ecchi elements just seem to go a little far or be a little forced. But in volume number 6, we get the prequel. We get the story of how humanity survived during the time when the gods were at war. And in this single volume that really isn't that much longer than any other No Game, No Life volume, we get a brand new set of characters that I cared for more, I would say, by the end of that book than I did for the characters in the main series. Their hopelessness, the desolate conditions that they begin in, you feel it. It's so well written in that regard. And as they find sparks of hope, as they begin to create a plan to try and actually survive by doing something as opposed to just hiding, this book drew me in. It's giving me goosebumps just talking about it. And I think it's partly too because I saw the anime movie that was based on it that was released this year. And even though I think the book told the story better, the movie undeniably is beautiful and stunning, and I would say read the book and then go watch the movie, because it's absolutely worth watching. But I'd say walk into it having the full story of the book first. Although I guess it doesn't really matter either way, but anyway, I definitely do both. So yes, volume number 6 of No Game, No Life. It was one of those books where you put it down, it was like a revelation. It was like, my God, like Yu Kamiya can actually really write, like not just, a bit slapsticky, eshy type comedy, but, and, clever games, but like really make me feel something. It was like I said, it was like the best No Game, No Life novel of the series. And for that reason, it's on the list, and it's a little bit higher on the list just because volume number 6 absolutely blew me away. And I just can't say enough about that one volume. It was just so good in comparison to the rest of the series. It was almost a revelation in that sense. At number 7, from Sakon Kaido, Infinite Dendrogram. This one being released by J Novel Club. There's currently 3 volumes released. There is going to be a 4th volume very soon, like in the next week, I guess. I read volumes 1, 2, and 3, so I'm actually caught up on the series. This one, I walked into it not expecting a lot. It was yet another light novel being set up because of a VR MMO. And I've read a lot of those. We've all read a lot of those. We've all seen anime based around a lot of those. And I thought to myself, how can this series really do anything that's new or different? It surprised me. It managed to do it. And took this story about a video game with absolute freedom and created a very complex and compelling morality play around it. And I can't say too much because I don't really want to give away a lot of elements of the book, but it approached this with a bit of maturity to it. And there are a lot of game mechanics that are very interesting and actually unique. It isn't just your standard, like, let's just carbon copy World of Warcraft type of thing or Dungeons and Dragons. It has a very unique game mechanic, this whole embryo system. And as I mentioned in my most recent review of volume number 3, even the embryo system, aside from just being a cool game mechanic and giving us sort of other characters, in a lot of ways, it also gives us a glimpse into the potential inside feelings and emotions and driving factors of our main characters. It's a very interesting book that works on a lot of different levels, and in some ways, I think feels unique because of the fact that it is not a book where the characters are trapped or transported to another world. The very fact that they are able to log out, the very fact that they can treat it as a game, makes for a very different experience and calls into question a lot of different things about who are we as gamers and what might we do, presented with a world where the possibilities were basically limitless. At number 6, by Mizuki Nomura, Book Girl series. In particular, I read the volume Book Girl and the Suicidal Mime, which is volume number 1 of the series. There are 8 volumes available. This is the only series on the list that didn't have a brand new volume released in the year of 2017, but it was brand new to me and really blew me away. So it's on my list. What can I tell you? In fact, I've got volumes 2 and 3 that I'm kind of itching to get to. It was a series that took the slice of life aspect of school life, but then made it just a little bit off center with having this main female character who calls herself a book girl. And what that basically means is that the only thing that she receives sustenance from is eating stories. Paper with stories written on them. That's the only thing that she tastes flavors from, and it's the only thing that she can survive on. And the other male main character in the series was a young boy who won under a pseudonym, won a light novel contest, and it basically, the fame that he didn't know how to handle caused him to have such an anxiety attack that he has totally shunned writing. And now this girl has basically roped him into joining her story club, and now she has him write her short stories that she can eat. And this book, it just, I don't know, this was one of those books that I think I rated a lot based on my feeling about it. It really just drew me in, and there was this sweetness between their relationship, and even the way that the boy would write a story knowing that it would probably be almost unpalatable to the girl, just as like a joke. And their relationship was, in a way tender, and she was kind of and I mean, it was questionable whether she even knew that he had been this light novel author, but yet she's drawing out of him this stuff that he has hidden away from because of his anxieties. And there's all these other sort of tragedies. And, at the same time that it has this sweetness, there's this melancholy that just runs underneath it for the entirety of the book. It's somber, but at the same time hopeful. And at the same time, it is tender and sweet. It just made me feel so many different emotions that I was just blown away by the first volume. And like I said, I've got more. I'm anxious to get into more in 2018. Even the artwork is this very, I don't even know how to explain it because I'm not an art critic by any means, but it's not like a very hard lines. Like, it's very soft and almost ephemeral type of artwork. And it just seems to go so beautifully with the tone of the story. This one was just such a surprise. I really read it only because Cho from EnglishLightNovels.com and also August Hale had both been reading it and saying how great it was. I believe even Sean Gaffney got in on that on Twitter. We were all sort of going on. They were all talking about how good a series it was. So that was why I picked it up. And I was so glad that I did. It's really unlike so many other things, how it has this very slice of life and yet drama and, these sort of human tragedy components and everything else. It just ran me through so many different emotions on a constant basis that I just absolutely loved it. It really drew me in. And so, like I said, I'm quite anxious to read more. At number 5 by Ishiya Yamagata, Roka, Braves of the Six Flowers. This one being released by Yen On. There's currently 3 volumes available. I read volumes 1 and 2. I've got 3 in my to-be-read pile in 2018, I guess at this point. This series really surprised me. It's a fantasy series, and yet it created, the first volume in particular was built around the old mystery cliche of the locked room mystery. And how it combined this with a fantasy theme, how it had all these different characters that any single one of them could have been the culprit. It was fascinating. And it was fascinating in that it was even using science in the first volume in particular, that it used science in a way to actually reveal the trick of everything. So in this fantasy world, science ends up winning the day, which I thought was so cool and so unlike a lot of other fantasy novels. And even volume number 2, it switched things up quite a bit, and we started getting a lot deeper into other characters' stories. And this is just one of those series that it really surprised me. I didn't expect a lot of it, I have to be honest. Like, I really only did pick it up because I try to read at least the first volume of any new series that come out. But this is one that's really pulled me in, and it's a relatively short series. There's only 6 books in it, so it's going to be one that I finish for sure, because I just have to know how this all turns out. It was really, really it just had me hooked for the entire book. I could not put it down. As we get into the top 4, we've got a couple of ongoing series. There's one series in here that I've only read 1 volume for. The other 3 are all series that are constants in my review schedule. First one at number 4 by Fujino Omori, Is It Wrong to Try to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon? Currently, there are 10 volumes available. I read 3 this year. I read 7, 8, and 9. This series is up there because 9 volumes, consistently great books. In fact, consistently each book getting better than the one before. Volume number 7 changed so much about this series for me. The fact that it was acknowledging the dark underbelly of an otherwise glossy fantasy world. The fact that, I mean, it started getting into like prostitution, human trafficking, like it just started taking the series to a whole other different kind of level. And then volume number 8, which was the short story volume, I thought would be kind of a throwaway volume, to be honest. And yet it still managed to move the story ahead as well as develop the characters in very meaningful ways. And then finally, volume number 9 changed everything. Like, you're 9 volumes in, you think you know the ground rules, and yet this one pulled the carpet out from under just about everything that we took for granted about this series. It changed so much. And having a series that has been so consistently well written, as well as having these consistently interesting storylines, and then to have it just completely flip the whole thing on its head in volume number 9, fantastic series. Always one that I can count on, always one that I enjoy. I've got volume number 10 that I am very anxious to read because volume number 9 kind of left things fairly open. So Danmachi is what we call it short form, but absolutely it is a fantastic series. Just every book I read of that series this year impressed me, so that's where it is on this list. At number 3 by Eiji Mikage, it is The Empty Box and Zeroth Maria. Only one volume has been released so far this year by Yen On, and man, what a volume. It took the Groundhog Day type mechanic, the whole like repeating a set of days over and over and over again, and did something with it that I'd never seen before. It actually listed the number of repetitions that we were in so that it could jump forwards and backwards depending on what it wanted to reveal about the story and the characters. And it was this incredible mystery. And again, it was kind of funny where, I was talking about Roka being a locked room mystery, and in a way this was too, only it's locked room in terms of this days. It isn't just a locked room in terms of a specific space. And phenomenal. I mean, I was so pulled into that book. I actually wanted to book off sick from work so I didn't have to put it down. I wanted to read that one straight through the night so that I could finish it because I could not put it down. It was just so good. And the characters were just so interesting and left me like at the end of the book just wanting to know so much more about them and knowing about, and to try and figure out what was going to happen from here because it's not the end. And this book just, it was, I mean, I had a lot of hype built up about this book. So much so that I have to be honest, I went into it with a lot of trepidation because I kind of thought there's no way that this book is going to live up to the hype. There's just none. It cannot do it. I was wrong. I was wrong. In fact, in some ways, I would say it actually exceeded the hyped expectations that I had sort of formulated in my own mind. It met those expectations and beat them. And I would say pretty much of all the brand new series that I read this year, as much as there are lots that I have liked, and I mean, they're on this list, this is the one that I was like, you know what? This is the one that it doesn't matter what else happens, I will finish this series. I don't care what else comes out. I don't care how backed up I get with other books. This is the series that I will read to the last volume because I have to. I have to know how this goes. And that's a pretty big thing when you're reading, like I said, 83 light novels to feel that way about something. So yeah, it really was just a revel. It was just, you know what? I loved that book so much. I'm totally fanboying over it, but it really was. I think it's because I've seen that mechanic of Groundhog Day. I mean, Groundhog Day, the movie, All You Need Is Kill. Then of course the movie based on All You Need Is Kill, which was so different. It might as well have been its own thing. It's been used again and again. Star Trek has used it, but like I said, it just seemed so different in this one. And I think part of it was just because it actually told us how many repetitions there had been and would jump back and forth. And, yeah, I mean, it was a bit of a mind twist. There were times where I actually would flip back and be like, what day was that in comparison to this day and everything else? Like, the book really just got me into it. So, fantastic book. I can't recommend it enough. And I think I said that in the review of it anyway. But yes, so that is number 3 on my list. At number 2, an ongoing series that has continued to impress me, and that is Teppei Nagatsuki's ReZero, Starting Life in Another World. This one, there are 5 volumes been released by Yen On. I read volumes 3, 4, and 5 this year. Volume 6 isn't coming out, I think, until February, which is, oh, so painful, because volume 5 just was, and I think it's like, as much as I thought volumes 3 and 4 were really good, I think it was volume 5 that just made this so high on my list this year. I mean, honestly, like I gave really high marks to volumes 3 and 4 as well, but because 3 was, well, they all just keep building this story bigger and bigger. Particularly 4, like when we start off with 1, we've got these cast of characters and, these rogues and stuff. We get into 2 and 3, and it's a much more of a mystery story and set in this mansion with a very small cast of characters. Then we get into 4, and all of a sudden the world is so much bigger, and we've got this huge competition about who is going to become the next monarch. And then we get into 5, and this story is like a horror story. And the way that it uses the mechanic of you die, you reset kind of thing, it is unbelievable how it does it. In terms of how it shows the trauma psychologically that the main character goes through every time he resets, the things that he encounters, the beatings that his mind is taking. It is one of the few books that I think really addresses how a character with all of this stress on him can be almost destroyed by it. It's just such a good series, and the writing is just so strong, and the story just keeps getting better and better, and so many different elements into it. And I left volume 5 and I was like breathless with the way that ended. I had to just take a moment and sort myself out and be like, oh my God, I can't believe I have to wait until the end of February to find out what happens next. So good. So good, that series. So solid and dependable. Like I said, I mean, that's the thing about these ongoing series that I'm talking about that are in these sort of couple of top 4. Like, I mean, aside from, of course, Empty Box, I've only read 1. But, like, if a series continues to get better volume after volume, and not just better in terms of, oh, the story is kind of cooler and stuff, but I mean, like, you can feel it, how much better it is. You've got to acknowledge that. You just have to. And ReZero does that for me. Volume 5 in particular just killed it. And introducing the characters it does, and wow, it left me, like I said, it was breathless. Like I was like, oh my God. Like, and then, as the horror sits in that I have to wait months to find out what happens next. Yeah, it's tough stuff. Tough stuff. And finally, at number 1, and well, I guess if you follow this channel and watch my reviews regularly, you're probably not going to be surprised that the number 1 spot goes to Kugani Maruyama's Overlord. This is a series that I gush about pretty much every single chance that I get. There's been 5 volumes released by Yen On. I've read, of course, all 5. This year, I read volumes 3, 4, and 5. And what a stunning series. Like, the setup sounds so kind of hokey, but yet the way it is executed is incredible. And what really just put me in awe of the series in particular were the volumes, like 3, 4, and 5. This year, like, these volumes were killer. I mean, 4 was probably the weakest of them, and even then, it was a really good book. And I think what impresses me about this series is that what we have seen in these volumes 3, 4, and 5, particularly in 4 and in 5, is that the main character can be so flexible. Like, you can have him in volume 3 where it is like this incredible battle and you're seeing him go all out and it's awesome and heart pounding and you're like, this is so cool, this like magic, like absolute duel to the death. But then 4 and 5 almost make him like this boogeyman, this character who is, you always feel his presence and yet he's not really in the book a whole lot. You start seeing how this series can survive in a much broader sense, and that the characters that have come to this world, how their influence is starting to affect it. And it's almost like I almost want to call it a cancer, you know, like just it's seeping into all parts of the society. And particularly in book 5, we really get that, right? Because now they're in sort of the big city. Ainz is hardly in the book at all. And yet you're having connections starting to be formed between like palace staff and, you know, the servants of Ainz and everything else. And this series is just going in places that it's totally unpredictable to me. You know, like as much as Empty Box surprised me, as much as ReZero continues to surprise me, there are certain moments when I sit there and I think to myself, I kind of think I know where this is going. And yet Overlord is just one of those series that I'm just like, I don't even know what the end game is here. Like, I don't know where this is going. I don't know if Ainz is going to become a full-on hardcore villain, and please don't tell me if you know. But you know what I mean? Like, there are so many different ways that this book can go. And just in these first 5 volumes, and like I said, in the 3 in particular that I read this year, there is so much room for this series to go anywhere. It's boggling to me in a way, like, you know, and yet everything as it goes along makes sense, you know, like it's not like it's just, let's just throw a bunch of stuff at the wall and see what sticks. Like it makes sense, but yet it's just leaving this huge room of, I don't know where this is going, but I'm really excited to find out. So like I said, I mean, if you've watched the channel, you know I gush about Overlord all the time. It probably shouldn't surprise you that it's my #1 pick for 2017. So those are my top 10 light novels for the year 2017. Of course, this list is going to change, I imagine, like crazy. We've got a bunch of brand new series coming out in 2018. We've got, of course, a bunch of new volumes of these ongoing series that, you know, very well may or may not change my opinion about them. I mean, in some ways, I kind of think like there's no way No Game, No Life is going to be as impressive ever again as it was in volume number 6. So I don't expect to be on the list next year, but I could be wrong. So what about you? What did you read in 2017? Give me anywhere like your top 10, your top 5, your top 3, heck, your top 1. I don't care. And, you know, I only review stuff that's officially licensed, but I don't care where you read it. If you read it in another language because English isn't your first language, if you read it like a fan translation, whatever. If you read a light novel this year and you loved it, you let me know in the comments down below. I love hearing your opinions. And, you know, that really kind of brings me back. I'm going to do sort of the mushy part because this is my last video of 2017. So, you know, of course, I got to get a little sentimental here. At least I did the list part first. So if you're here because you just want to see the top 10, you can turn off. If you're one of those fantastic individuals that watches all of my videos, even my blathering on, you know what? Thank you so much. In 2017, 2,100 people subscribed to the channel. Now, I know in the grand schemes of like PewDiePies and Gigix and all those people, Digibros, that's nothing. It's nothing. But you know what? In 2016, 846 people subscribed. So 2.5 times almost the amount of people came to this channel, liked the content enough to stick around. And I think what means the most to me is that the comments have been increasing and the conversations have been increasing. And, you know, I've met this year in particular I've met people that I've had conversations with on Twitter and here in the comments. And, you know, in my real life, I'm the only person I know who reads light novels. I don't know anybody else. There's no one else for me to really talk to about this stuff. The only place that I get to talk about what I love about light novels is right here on this channel, on my social media networks, you know, and it means so much to me to have that connection and to have all of you leaving your comments, talking back and forth, talking about the things you love. You know, I get to learn more about new things and new series. I get to see sort of things in a different way than maybe I saw it the first time. It means so much to me. And I really, really value the fact that so many of you are coming back here on a regular basis, and so many of you are participating, and you are so incredibly supportive. And it means a ton to me. You know, I've struggled with some stuff in 2017, not, you know, nothing compared to, there's a lot of people that have far worse struggles than I do. But I just kind of feel like, you know, this channel and the way that it's been growing and everything else has been a very solid thing for me this year to hang on to. And it has meant so much to me to have that. And I am looking so forward to continuing this into 2018. I hope to read even more books. You know, 2017, I started off kind of slow, but I started getting to the point where I was doing 2 and 3 books. So this year I am hoping to do at least 105 books over 2018. So I can truly say I read at least 2 volumes a week and reviewed them. I will be continuing with the top 10 weekly countdown, doing videos whenever there's news like big licensing announcements and stuff like that. When only 1 or 2 things are announced, I'll just put it in sort of the community tab. Have you guys discovered that? Do you like it? Is it useful to you? Let me know. Later this year in May, I'm going to be going to an anime convention in Toronto. I went last year. This year, I am fingers crossed, hoping that I can actually do a light novel panel, because it doesn't seem like there's ever been one. And I think that with us getting to the point where we are constantly getting double-digit releases of light novels every single month, it's time. It's time that, you know, this fandom expands even more, and that starts rivaling at least the fandom of manga. Why not? You know? And we are getting more and more titles. The publishers are getting more and more behind bringing out light novels. It's a great time to be a fan of light novels. 2017 has been a phenomenal year. We have had quite literally hundreds of volumes of light novels released this year. I expect we're going to see even more in 2018. So it's a really great time to be a fan of light novels. And I am so happy to have this channel and to have all of you be a part of it. And I really appreciate it. I hope you have a fantastic New Year's Eve. I've got this posted on the 31st if you're watching it on the day that it was posted. Have a great New Year's Eve. I hope that the new year begins outstanding for you. Is there, you know what, if you feel like sharing some stuff about your goals for 2018, let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear them. I can tell you that for me personally, I would like to get in better physical shape. I'd like to get a little better mental shape. I've been feeling very sort of scattered, and you know, it's not great, especially when I'm trying to juggle a whole bunch of different things. I need to finish my 4th and final book in my book series, and I want to start something new. I want to start writing something different. So those are my sort of very loose kind of goals for 2018. How about you? What do you want to accomplish this year? Let me know that, and like I said, your light novel favorites in the comments down below. I'd love to hear from you. So again, thank you so much for all of your participation and presence this year. Thank you for watching this video. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Till then, bye-bye for now.